Moving on now, Russia announced fresh talks on the crisis unfolding in Afghanistan. Moscow, Washington DC, Beijing and Islamabad, they were set to meet, but United States has now decided to skip it. Citing logistical reasons, the State Department has said that the country is not in a position to take part in the group. However, DC has shown keenness to participate in the future.
We will not participate in the Moscow talks. The Troika Plus has been an effective, constructive forum. We look forward to engaging in that forum going forward, but we're not in a position to take part this week.
Now, under the group named Troika Plus, officials from the Taliban, China, Pakistan and Russia are scheduled to be in attendance. Earlier in March, Moscow, Washington DC, Beijing and Islamabad had released a joint statement calling on then Ashraf Ghani government to reach a peace deal with the Taliban. And since then, the United States and NATO have withdrawn their troops, as you know. Afghanistan has fallen under the complete control of Taliban's rule and the Ghani government has collapsed. So the political climate in Kabul has changed 180 degrees since March. Washington's decision to not participate in the talks comes at a time when foreign powers are still mulling over recognizing Taliban and calculating how to engage with the group. In the group, apart from the US, Russia, China and Pakistan, these countries have already shown interest in engaging with the new rulers of Afghanistan. This even before Taliban's seizure of Kabul. The group's representatives held multiple official trips to these countries. So, it does not come as a surprise that these three countries are comfortable holding talks with Taliban. But if the United States will follow the same path or not, that still remains to be seen. Now, Russia has announced the fresh talks on crisis unfolding in Afghanistan, which the United States will be skipping. They have cited logistical reasons for the same. The State Department has said that the country is at this point not in a position to take part in the group. However, they have shown their keenness to participate in the future. Now, the group named a Troika Plus, officials from Taliban, China, Pakistan and Russia, they are scheduled to be in attendance. Moscow, Washington DC, Beijing, Islamabad, they released a joint statement back in March calling on the then Ashraf Ghani government to reach a peace deal. But as we know, since then, the United States and NATO troops have withdrawn. Afghanistan has fallen under the complete control of Taliban's rule and the Ghani government has collapsed. So the political climate in Kabul at this point has changed a lot. And Washington's decision not to participate comes at a time when foreign powers are still mulling over recognizing Taliban and calculating how and in what degree to engage with the group. As far as the Troika group is concerned, apart from the United States, Russia, China and Pakistan, they have shown their interest in engaging with the rulers of Afghanistan. So it's not a surprise that they would be comfortable holding talks with the Taliban. US's participation, even though they have said that they are keen to hold discussions in the future, it still remains to be seen how they would do so. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the United States has cited logistical reasons and will not be participating in the talks of which Moscow, China and Islamabad will be a part under the group. Officials from Taliban, China, Pakistan, they're scheduled to meet. Moscow, Washington DC, Beijing and Islamabad, they had released a joint statement. This was before the takeover of Kabul back in March. They had called on the then Ashraf Ghani government to reach a peace deal with the Taliban. The political climate in Kabul, as you know, has changed a lot. Now, Washington's decision not to participate in the talks comes at a time when foreign powers are still trying to strike a balance as to how to hold discussions with the Taliban or whether or not to recognize the Taliban. But Russia, China and Pakistan, they've already shown their interest in engaging with the new rulers of Afghanistan. This was even before the Taliban's seizure of Kabul. So at this point, it's really not a surprise that these three countries are comfortable holding talks with the Taliban. And for more on this, we're now being joined by correspondent Anas Malik from Kabul. Anas, thank you so much for joining us. Just to begin with, can you give us a rundown of what these talks will look like? We know the United States is not going to be part of the talks this time, but apart from that, what can you tell us?
Well, Troika Plus, or the extended Troika mechanism, was established in 2017 and then its meetings were held in 2018. It was supposed to be Troika Plus Plus as well, with Iran being included, but then Iran had refused to sit down with the United States, so therefore it remained till extended Troika, or in common language, Troika Plus. Now, the last such Troika Plus meeting, which has US, China, Pakistan and Russia, was held on the 11th of August in Doha, in which a joint communique, the then Troika Plus had denounced the formation of an Islamic Emirate through a force. A military takeover was denounced. So it will be very interesting that since that, right after four days after that joint communique, and after that meeting, we saw the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. Now, this Troika Plus, or extended Troika, exclusively focuses on Afghanistan. It has special representatives of Afghanistan from the countries mentioned. That means special representative of China, special representative of Russia, special representative of Pakistan, and special representative of the US on Afghanistan, to talk about Afghanistan, but without Afghanistan's inclusion. Now, the US has said that it would not be participating in these talks that are to happen in Russia today. They are to begin local time at 11:30, Moscow time at 11:30 a.m. and it would more focus on regional stability, inclusivity in Afghanistan, aid, and the fact that the Afghan soil is not used by terror-linked elements against any country in the region or largely in the world.
Right, Anas. Now, after over 2 months since the chaotic withdrawal of the United States and NATO, now the country's top envoy to Afghanistan, Zalmay Khalilzad, has stepped down. What do you make of these latest decisions?
Well, it was already in the works, frankly, because since the appointment of Tom West, who was the deputy special representative, it was being speculated in DC that Tom West will likely be taking over very soon. It was sooner than later, and it was only a matter of time. Tom West is a fluent Pashto-speaking diplomat, so that is an advantage to his side. Being from the West, speaking Pashto, speaking the language the Taliban speak, that is an advantage to his side. Zalmay Khalilzad was often seen as somebody soft on the Taliban for his ancestral roots belonging to Afghanistan. Therefore, he was seen relatively soft. So comparatively, it is a very interesting move on the part of the US. Not something new, not something out of the blue. As I said, it was very much on the cards, and it is to be seen that how going forward, how Tom West would be negotiating, because we understand that there are more than 10 evacuation flights that have already been carried out by the Qatar Airways, or the Qatari side, through on behalf of the United States. So there are still US citizens or permanent residents still in Afghanistan. The Taliban are not giving them free passage per se, so that is something that has to be looked out. And then the other things with regards to unfreezing of assets, because Taliban have been pushing that with regards to ensuring that terror does not emanate from Afghan soil. That would be on the agenda, and that would be something of more of a challenge for Tom West as and when he takes over this office.
Right, Anas. Now, we've seen a dominant theme here with foreign powers trying to understand how to engage with the Taliban and whether or not to recognize Afghanistan's new rulers. Now, this meeting comes at a time when the United States, they've decided to pull out, but we know that Russia, China and Pakistan, they have shown their keenness to recognize the new government. What do you make of this?
Well, Russia, Pakistan, China, these are the three countries whose special representative had just visited Afghanistan after the announcement of the government as well. All three ambassadors, Sadiq Khan, Zabir Kablov and the Chinese special envoy for Afghanistan had flown together here in Kabul about a month and a half ago. So, about a month ago. So, that is a very interesting alignment, because these three countries, they believe that they do not have the leverage or the liberty of time to stall the recognition or to stall engagement with the Taliban for the fact that Pakistan and China both share porous borders. Pakistan shares a 2,611 kilometers long border. China also shares a porous border on the Wakhan side in Badakhshan. And the other problem for China remains is that the Uyghur militants that are here in Afghanistan, we saw IS using one of them in the Kunduz blast. So these countries pushing for an engagement, other countries trying to distance themselves. It's very clear. They would want, as I said, to quote a Chinese diplomat and a Pakistani diplomat, they say that they do not have the luxury of time to wait and watch, and that is the reason this engagement in the region is absolutely necessary. Haim?
All right, Anas, thank you so much for joining us with all the updates on that. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.